Hi again. Here we are to continue working with Node and Express to create a sort of a social media website like Reddit. Okay, so to get started, what we'll do is we're going to be writing a lot of files and managing these files, so we need a tool for that. And the tool I'm going to recommend is Atom. This is it's by GitHub. I'm just going to Google Atom Editor. And here it is right here, atom.io. And, it says a hackable text editor for the 21st century. It's actually a pretty good tool. I like brackets and some other tools too, but, for big projects, I always go to Atom. You can download this and use it. You can download, or you can use any tool that you already have if you like another tool. It really doesn't matter. I'm going to use Atom, though. So what are we going to do to get started here? So if you've got Node and NPM up and running on your computer, what we'll need to do to get started is to create a folder where we're going to be working. So I'm going to go to, actually, you know what I'll do is I'll just create this on the desktop here. I'm going to create this project here, our new folder, and I'll call it, how about Reddit clone. And what I want to do is I want to open up the terminal and navigate to this folder in the terminal. And there's a few ways you can do that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of take the cheater's way here, and I'm going to type in cd space. This stands for change directory. So I'm going to change directory, and I need to type in the path to this folder on the desktop, but I'm going to cheat, and on the Mac you can just drag the folder into, if I can grab it there, you can drag it into the window and it will give you a path to the folder. So for me it would be users, make school, desktop, Reddit clone. And if I hit return, I'm now in the Reddit clone directory. I can see that here. Okay, so that's great. So what do we need to do next? Well, the first thing we need to do is we need to initialize an NPM project, okay, or an NPM package manager file thing. Okay, so I'm going to type in npm init, and when I do that, the terminal is going to give me sort of a bunch of questions. It's going to ask me, like, how do I want to set up this new project? So it says, hey, this utility will walk you through creating a package JSON file. So this package JSON file is a text file that's written in the JSON language, and it manages all of the packages, or it keeps track of all the packages that you're working with. And it has some other options too, and we'll talk about those as we work with this project, right? This npm init is just going to walk us through setting up that file, and really you can just hit return to all the options here, but if you want you can add some notes in there. So I'm going to name my package Reddit clone. It'll just give me the value in parentheses here if I hit return, and then it'll give me the value again, version 1. I can type in a description if I want. I'll just leave that blank. It says entry point is index.js. And then it says test command. I can leave that empty, and then it says git repository. And again, we can always edit these things later too. So if we don't like our settings here, we can always change them in the future. Keywords, if someone was searching for my project, they could search for these keywords, and then author, I could put my name in. I'll just leave it blank. License, and then it says, hey, this is the file that I'm going to create. It'll have this text in it. And is that okay? And I'm going to say, yeah, just hit return. Okay, so that's really great. And if I open up the folder here, you'll see that it's created package JSON. Okay, so now that we've got that, what we should do is we should open up this project and edit it in Atom or whatever text editor you're using. So I'm going to take the shortcut here and type in atom dot, and this means open Atom in the current directory, so it'll open it in the Reddit clone folder. So I'll hit return. And then it launches Atom, and you can see these are just kind of the default windows there. I'm going to close these, right? But this package JSON is the file that we just created. Okay, so now before we can begin, we need to add some dependencies. So dependencies are files that our project is going to depend on. Okay, and what we want to do is we want to add those, and essentially you're going to add them to this package JSON, but actually we can get NPM to write that code for us so we don't make any mistakes, right? So what I'll do is I'll go back to the terminal. I'm going to clear the terminal with Command K. and then I'll type in npm install -- save, and then I'll name the package. Okay, so the first command is npm, so I'm going to use the npm tool. Install says the action that I want npm to run, which is install, and -- save is a flag that says, hey, you know, how should you install this? And -- save means install it locally. Okay, so it's going to install it as a local dependency to this, you know, to this project. So just for this project, we're going to save Express, right? And this is the name of the package that we want. And there's, you know, thousands of packages on NPM. You know, you can't know what their names are unless you look them up on the NPM site, and you can search NPM for any of the packages. I'll just type them in here. I just happen to know that Express is named Express, and so I'll hit return. And you'll see it starts downloading the project here. And it might give you some warnings. If it gives you some errors, you'll have to go and figure out what those are. I got a warning, but that's okay. It says no description and no repository. That's not a big deal. And then our package is installed. And if I go back here, you'll see that it's added a couple lines here. One is the dependencies section, and then inside there it's got Express, right? So this is Express, and it's saying that it's using this version of Express. Okay, so that's really great. So now let's try and like sort of bootstrap our project and get it running. Okay, just kind of in a very bare bones way. Okay, and you know, in the future we're going to be adding a lot more packages, and we'll always follow the same procedure: npm install -- save name of package. Okay. You can also substitute just the I in place of install. So you can do npm I -- save express, right? Or whatever package name. Okay, so let's get our project working. I'm going to create a new file in the folder here, and you can do that through you know, Atom or whatever text editor you're using. If you're on the Mac in the terminal, you can also just say touch, and it will create a file, and you have to name the file. So I'm going to create a file. I'm going to call it server.js. And this will be our server file. And when I do that, you can see that server.js appears here. And then I can start typing into server.js, right? So what do I want to do here? The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use const. And then I'm going to say express equals require express. Okay? I'm going to do a few things here. If you're familiar with JavaScript, this may look a little weird because this is the ES6. It's like a newer version of JavaScript. If you're already familiar with this, you can ignore this next couple of sentences there. But essentially, a constant is like declaring a variable with var, except I'm saying that the value for the variable name express cannot change. So I'll get an error if I try and change express or assign a new value to express. So if I say express equals 11, this would be an error. Okay? Right? And I'm not planning to change express, so a constant is better for me because it's more efficient for the computer. So the computer has to do less processing to a variable that's assigned as a constant. Okay? And when we say require, what we're doing is we're loading another file. And I'll talk more about that later as we work. But essentially, I'm going to get the code out of this file. If the file that you name is the name of a dependency that you imported, like we did with package.json here, the express, you know, dependency there, right? It's actually existing in this folder here called node modules, and you don't have to include a path for it. Normally, you'd want to do something like this, you know, and say the folder name. But if it's one of the dependencies that's in package.json, you can just say the name of that dependency. So anyway, so there we go. So this imports Express, and now what we want to do is we want to start up our app. So I'm going to say app equals Express with parentheses. Okay. I'm also going to do this thing where I don't type the semicolons. That's maybe people will maybe that'll be very controversial, but I'm just going to not type the semicolons. I'm tired of semicolons. So anyway, and then there's some argument that that's the wrong thing to do, and then other people probably don't care. I kind of don't care. It hasn't really ever come back to haunt me, so I think I'm better off, and it kind of is more fun to do it without. Anyway, so we've just created a new instance of Express here. by calling express parentheses, and we'll just call our app. So this is our app. This is the server, okay? And to get the server started, what we're going to do is we're going to type in app.listen, okay? And this starts the server, okay? So we'll say app listen, and what we need to do is we need to say what port number we're listening on. So we're going to listen on port 3000, and then we're going to type in a function here. And this might seem a little odd, but this is a new ES6 style function. The old style function would look like this, no arrow, and we could type in function. You could type it like that. But I'm going to use the ES6 style. So I'm going to type it like this, right? So this says, hey, you know, app.listen, and this function right here is a callback that calls us back when, you know, the app is started. So we're calling, hey, let's start listening on port 3000, and then app goes through some work to get that going, and when it's done, it calls us back here and says, yeah, things are running, or maybe they're not, right? So I'm going to put a message here, console log, oops, I typed the semicolon, right? And then I'll say app running on port 3000, right? Okay. So there's our basic Express project, right? Let's test this. So how are we going to run our server? Now, what we're going to do is we're going to develop our app on our machine locally. So we'll run the file server from our machine locally. You won't be able to share it with your friends and family or other people around the world until you're finished working, and then we publish it to another, like a live web server, right? But for right now, your computer will act as the server, and then you can run it locally and do all your testing and development on that computer, and that's a pretty typical workflow, right? So anyway, so I've got my basic code in here, and now what I want to do is I want to go to the terminal. Make sure your terminal is pointing to the folder here, and then you want to type in node, and then you want to type in server.js. So remember, the file that we just created here was server.js, and we're talking to Node, and we're saying, Node, why don't you run server.js? And now it says, hey, app running on port 3000. That was our message, right? Right? So when we log something in our Express app, it shows up in the terminal, right? So there you go. So if that's working, then you've got everything up and running, and then we can continue and start adding other features to our app. So thanks for watching.